Well, let's cross directly to the Élysée Palace. Emmanuel Macron and Olaf Scholz coming out to give a press conference.
And congratulate you for being elected. It was important that we could meet, of course, and we have had numerous opportunities to converse. But I think that this visit is a very special moment. This is a moment that establishes the foundations for the relations between our two countries, the bilateral relations themselves, which were further strengthened by the Aix-la-Chapelle Treaty, but also this is a moment to talk about the big European and international issues that we want to coordinate around. And a moment ago, we discussed most of them. We have had rich discussions about the situation in Belarus, in Ukraine. We have underlined the importance of cooperation between Germany and France, and also the need to support our Eastern partners as part of the Eastern Partnership. We also underlined our attachment to protecting the external borders of the European Union. We discussed relations between Africa and Europe to prepare for the upcoming summit between the EU and Africa, and we talked about relations with China, as well as the need to maintain the balance between defense and defending our values, and also working with Beijing on the big international issues. Over the last years, I worked with Angela Merkel on all of these topics. Very often, we worked with our other counterparts, and I believe that we were very effective in many ways, and I'm sure, dear Olaf, that we will be able to continue to coordinate in this way. We have a number of shared initiatives, we have shared desires and will to work on these issues together and to push forward on a number of issues in a shared framework. This will be founded on values, on our own European vision of our relations with our international partners, and even more on today, the Human Rights Day, that this is a fight that both of our countries are fighting hand in hand in numerous ways. We also discussed our cooperation within Europe at a time when we have been working around the G7 and the presidency of the European Union for a shared agenda on social issues, on the climate and digital transition, on our shared response to migration challenges, on investment, and opening institutions. We have declared our shared desire to work together, and I believe that these first conversations clearly show that we have solid convergence in our points of view, and I was very happy, dear Olaf, to work with you and to host you in Paris here today for this first trip outside of Germany. You'll be heading off to Brussels after this, and I've been able to see firm beliefs on a number of issues that we agree on, a real desire to work together, to have both of our countries work together, and a real belief in Europe that I was already aware of, with a lot of determination that we're going to need in the coming months and years. So thank you very much for visiting us today, for this first dialogue and for the work that's coming. What I would like to say is that, of course, after establishing our government, we decided to very quickly start working with our French partners. I announced that I would be meeting with the President of the French Republic in Paris. We had a very friendly conversation on issues that are important to us, that we're interested in, how to strengthen Europe, how to strengthen European sovereignty in all of its components. We talked about economics, foreign policy, security. And it is important that we work together, that we cooperate, and that we work in the same direction. So not only is this a friendly visit, but it is also a visit that has enabled us to brush over all of the topics that will be important to us in the coming months. We have already started to lay the groundwork of what we're going to be working on in the upcoming times, the G7 and the French presidency of the EU, and we hope to push forward on all of these issues. I believe that we will achieve success. This is a first visit, but it is not the last. Far from it. We will be holding many meeting groups from now on, and relations between France and Germany will continue to move in a positive direction based on our discussions today.
Bundeskanzler, es bezieht sich auf die Kriegsgefahr im Osten Europas. Sind Sie bereit, sich der Initiative von
This is a question for the Chancellor. The danger in the east of Europe. President Biden has launched an initiative. Will you be joining it, and will you be discussing issues with President Putin to de-escalate the situation at the Ukrainian border? And what might those meetings look like? What might you be able to offer President Putin with regards to China? Mr. President, you have already said that it is likely that France will not join the diplomatic boycott of the Beijing Olympic Games. Do you think that Europe will take a shared stance on this? And Mr. Scholz, have you already made a decision? Or do you think that you will follow the decision of the French president and not boycott the Games? The situation at the Ukrainian border is of great concern to everyone, of course. There are lots of soldiers that are massing, and it makes sense to talk about it. The American president has decided to meet with President Putin, and we see this as a positive development. On our end, we will be contributing so that Ukraine can maintain its outlook. We're going to be implementing actions, and we're going to continue to cooperate as part of the Normandy Treaty framework. We know that protection of European borders is one of the principles that we must defend in Europe. And in fact, this has already been useful to us in the past, and it bears repeating. It's important that everyone knows that these are universal rules. It's not a power play, it's a principle that must apply to everyone. This means that we will be working in this direction and that our friends can count on us. Moving on to the question of the Olympic Games. We are working with a large number of partners, and we wish to work together on this issue. As a follow-up to what the Chancellor just said, it is useful that President Biden discusses issues with President Putin. This has led to discussions in a dequint format with European partners. Our shared goal is to continue this dialogue with the presidents of Russia and Ukraine. I met with President Zelensky recently. We will be meeting him next week together as part of the Eastern Summit in Brussels next Wednesday. And that will be the opportunity to decide on any further initiatives. But the Normandy format is still relevant. It's a process that allows for work between Ukraine and Russia. I'd describe it as a mediation from France and Germany, and we're going to continue in this format. I think that all of these initiatives are complementary, and they show a desire for stability and for de-escalation in the region, whilst not underplaying the importance of our shared borders for us and for our European partners. I would like to refer you back to my response to the Olympic Games issue yesterday. I did state that we wish to coordinate alongside our European partners, and that is the mindset in which French diplomacy will be working. And I would like everyone to take a step back and understand what's at stake. No one is suggesting boycotting the Olympic Games. It's simply a diplomatic boycott. I underlined the importance that the impact of such a boycott was maybe relative. Mr. President, Mr. Chancellor, Bloomberg News, a question for each of you. If, as American intelligence is suggesting, early 2022, Russia were to invade Ukraine, what would Germany do in that situation, and what would France do in that situation? Second question for Mr. Scholz. Would you be ready to review the Maastricht criteria? And Mr. President, are you inspired by the Germans' position on migration to encourage non-compulsory and economic migration? On your first question, I think that our first goal is to avoid any unnecessary tension, what I might call self-fulfilling prophecies. I think that members of the Quint, so EU and US, we need to show that we are aware of the situation, but we do not want to see any form of escalation in the region. And it is important to remember the importance of the stability and the sovereignty of the Ukrainian nation. I do not want to feed into any political fiction that may end up leading to exactly what it's predicting. Economic migration is a reality in both of our countries now. In many sectors, it's being felt, and the issue that we're experiencing now is that migration flows have increased in volume over the last years. This is due to geopolitical destabilization and war abroad, the impact of climate change, and also inequality. We need to make sure that this migration continues because it's necessary to our economies and has always existed in our societies. We need to make sure that we remain even-handed and respectful of our values, because asylum is a constitutional value of Europe. It's protecting the people who risk their lives fighting for freedom in their home countries, and we need to also be more effective in our fight against illegal immigration, especially the human traffickers who are organizing these illegal flows. We can do that through partnerships with the third-party countries and the first countries. We can protect our shared external borders better as well. And we discussed this because we were targeted by the hybrid attacks, and we're going to continue to work on our defense approach, and also by reworking Schengen space and working on how effective our policies are when we take people back to the country that they left for those who are not eligible for asylum and who are living in our countries illegally. That's the guiding light, and I think that because we just discussed this, we have a shared approach on this. Thank you very much for that question. One thing is very clear right now. We have to cooperate. We have to act and put effort into this in Europe. But that requires that our borders hold firm, and we are working to de-escalate conflict. And we want to make sure that the future is open to everyone. As part of our Eastern Partnership, we are very happy to be able to continue to work on this issue, and we have very clear positions on this topic as well. Sabine Rau for the German television, first channel.
Excusez.
Mr. President, after your speech yesterday on Europe, could you please provide more information on how you see the future of the Maastricht contracts and the stability criteria? Do you believe that they're obsolete?
Neben den beschworenen Gemeinsamkeiten in der deutsch-französischen Zusammenarbeit gibt es ganz offensichtlich zwei Knackpunkte.
You previously stated that you had shared positions on French and German cooperation. However, there are two bones of contention. First of all, the Stability Pact's future. You stated that after the coronavirus pandemic, we needed to review those criteria. And what about nuclear policy? France wants nuclear energy to be recognized as green energy, which doesn't seem to be going down very well in Germany.
Wir haben, und ich glaube, da sind wir beide ganz verantwortlich beteiligt gewesen, gerade gezeigt, was möglich ist in Europa, wenn wir zusammenarbeiten, übrigens im Rahmen.
I think that we bear responsibility in this. We want to cooperate across Europe, especially as part of our Stability Pact. We're fighting an unprecedented crisis and relaunching the recovery fund is an issue, a challenge. But I hope that we can overcome these together. I believe we can. As to growth, we believe that the recovery fund would be a driver for this and would help us have healthier finances, but they're not mutually exclusive. This is what we've identified as part of our conversations. We will be able to create shared concept. We have committed to the flexibility allowed for in the Stability Pact to be allowed as part of these extraordinary circumstances, and we want that to continue to be possible. I believe you asked a question about companies, was that it? Now, I know that there is a debate going on about energy taxonomy. It could take a whole half hour to explain this, but actually it's a way to assess companies and then to draw conclusions from that assessment. I think we need to realize that each country has its own outlook on things, their own way of fighting against climate change. What brings us together is that we are ambitious in this matter and are bearing our responsibility in this matter. Germany has already made a number of decisions. We want to get out of nuclear. We are betting on solar energy, on the stability of our electricity network, onshore and offshore wind farms as well, and we want to have stable systems with gas and hydrogen and other things. And that is what we are concentrating on right now. We believe that in this way we can help fight against climate change. On the finance and outlook, we need to have three goals on this. As a throwback to what I said yesterday. As the Chancellor just said, the first one is that we need to maintain growth and reduce joblessness in Europe. This is a social and economic target that is very important. Secondly, we need to continue to strengthen industrial and innovative industries that will enable Europe to have a greener, more digital economy that creates jobs and improves our sovereignty. And this will require huge investments. Thirdly, of course, we must continue to bring together member states on certain issues. This is especially true for the countries that have the same currency, so that we can have responsible budgetary management. And as part of this process, we need to find mechanisms, rules, and ways to be flexible to stay on track for those three goals. And this is what we're going to be discussing over the coming months. During the crisis, we were able to show that we had enough flexibility to adapt the rules, and we adopted a new concept, which was shared debt for never-before-seen financing the 750 billion in our recovery plan. I think we need to show those same skills and abilities as we innovate and invent these solutions to overcome the challenges of the future. We're not here to rehash debates that have been going on for years. This is a new environment. We hope that we are gradually pulling out of a never-before-seen pandemic with the social and economic consequences that involved. Investing in sovereignty and industry is going to be necessary, so we need to find the right agreement so that we can continue to work towards our 3 targets. Guillaume Daré for France Television. As part of the fight against COVID-19, the rules are stronger in Germany, with rules applying to companies especially. Do you not think that the health protection measures should be the same across France and Germany, especially for the regions that are next to the border between France and Germany? And, Mr. President, your Minister for Culture announced this morning that the archives from the Algerian war will be opened up 15 years earlier. Are you not worried that this will lead to conflict? On your second question, what the minister announced is part of the process that we started and involves a number of ministries, the Ministry for the Armed Forces, Culture, and is very much in line with the Storer report and this in-depth work that we're doing. And this is a work for truth that is necessary and should be done calmly, and I think that we can. And we also need to recognize all of the memories in the past that have led to France as it is today. On COVID-19, we do have ways to coordinate in border regions. We've had constant dialogue since the beginning of the crisis. Sometimes movements differed as things got harder or faster. And the systems are different, I would like to remind you. Germany is a federal system where each region has significant autonomy in this kind of thing, which sometimes can make things a little bit more delicate, and I'm sure the Chancellor will have to coordinate all of this. But from the very beginning of the crisis, we've been coordinating very closely between France and Germany. We've been able to do this with the French Republic and the Federal Republic of Germany, and we've also been able to achieve this in a decentralized way. For example, our prefects have consistently held remote meetings with the presidents of French regions and the leaders of the German lands. And we wanted to make sure that we took into account the needs of cross-border workers. As you know, over the last months, we have our pass sanitaire system here in France, our health certification pass system. We have been able to achieve good cross-border cooperation, even though Germany doesn't have a similar system, although they now do have a slightly different system for working in Germany, and we're going to continue to make sure that cooperation is done properly, that cross-border workers are properly protected on both sides, and also continue to contribute to the debate and discussions with our employee representative partners. There are differences, of course there are, but we always want to make sure that there is convergence between the positions of the two countries. I think it's fair to say that thanks to the commitments from our local politicians and thanks to our civil service, we have always been able to make sure that life remains as close as possible to life as normal for our cross-border workers. Would you like to answer on COVID and cross-border cooperation?
Ja, kann ich gerne noch ein paar Bemerkungen hinzufügen.
Yes, I can. Maybe a few comments on this. Cooperation between our two countries has been very effective up until now, and there are no practical concerns particularly. Even though rules may slightly differ on either side of the border, they're not that difficult to follow, and that is one of the core criteria. Someone working in France needs to adhere to the French rules, someone working in Germany needs to adhere to the German rules. It really is that simple. Therefore, we're going to continue to do what we've done up until now, cooperate, and of course we will need a European response to these challenges. This is a worldwide crisis that doesn't stop at the European borders, and that's why we need to continue to work to overcome this virus. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Chancellor.